I loved what Ronald Moore did with Battlestar. And I know that you're working on that as well. And I'm sure that's a priority project for all the executives and everyone involved. So can you provide for fans of Battlestar, can you give an update as to the status of the new Battlestar?
The status is we're still working out working on the pilot. We're, look, it's a big universe. It's a big world. I want to respect the Ronald Moore Battlestar. I spoke to him before I even took on the project to make sure that it's all kosher with him, because the last thing I want to do is step on his toes. And the one thing we both agreed on is that it won't be a reboot of what he did, and which I think we both wanted. And so we're basically, it's sort of still in the early phases of trying to figure out the world via the pilot. I think we've got the basic construction of the type of story we want to tell, the part of the mythology that we're going to explore, because Battlestar does have a rich mythology. And again, I have to give Ron a lot of credit for that. And so now we're sort of closing in on what the first episode, what that pilot's going to look like.
I'm curious with the network, and is it one of these things where you're starting at the beginning thinking, we have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan? Are you thinking about it like in a finite way, so you have like a beginning, middle, and end?
So Mr. Robot was about one character, and I've said this ad nauseum in every interview. I've initially thought of it as a film. So I had the luxury of knowing the ending of Mr. Robot, and it was more the expansion of that into a series feels easier than when you take a concept like Battlestar, which is inherently an ensemble cast of characters, where you're not telling just one story, but you're kind of jumping into the lives of multiple characters and their arcs, and so there's a bigger sort of canvas that you're playing with. So I think what we're doing is we're going to work out some of the construction of where thematically and sort of the mythology of what time span and what type of story within that time span, within that part of the mythology that we're going to tackle on, what we're going to explore in this series. But I don't know specifically, and again, we're still early because we're only talking about the pilot. I don't know specifically we're going to work out every beat of how it's going to end in the same way that I did with Mr. Robot. It's a little again, very different because of how personal and singular Mr. Robot was in its story.
Too many episodes can water down anything. So with Battlestar, do you guys are already thinking you want like an 8-episode season, a 10-episode season, something compact where it's like every episode really drives?
So this is something that's really exciting. I'm glad you asked this because I don't even know if it's out there, but when I spoke to Peacock about it, and Mike Leslie, I should say, who's an amazing writer, he's the one that's showrunning and writing the pilot. The one thing we got excited by is, do we release an episode a week? Do we put them all? Do we binge them all? For me, it was like, let's get in there and tell this right story, and it will tell us how many episodes. We may dump 3 episodes in a row because it's a 3-episode long battle, sequence that needs to be dropped in a row, even though there are 3 signifying chapters, and maybe each chapter is switching a different point of view within that battle sequence. There may be a 20-minute episode that's the backstory of one of the characters that gets dropped right after that. So we're going to really experiment with form on this one, because Battlestar, again, given the sort of rich mythology that's in there already, we want to hit every nook and cranny. And because of the format, because of Peacock and streaming, and there have been such great partners in us in trying to experiment, we want to get into the writer's room and let the story tell us how it wants to be released. So I can't tell you the number of episodes, but it's also kind of a little meaningless, because I think we're going to look at it as a sort of like as a sort of spider web, where we can kind of plot and point and say, well, this isn't chronologically after episode 1 or 2, it's the backstory of someone, but let's release that so that audiences can check that out if they want. or they can jump right into the battle sequence. We're really going to try and really experiment with form in that way. And again, I think with a property like Battlestar, it lends to that.
I would imagine that you are being offered. Well, I mean, look, you have your ABC pilot. You're being offered a lot of different stuff right now, and I'm just curious. Do you envision yourself being the showrunner of Battlestar, or are you sort of envisioning setting it up, doing the pilot, getting it off the ground, and then bringing someone on to do like the day-to-day while you executive produce?
Mike is writing the pilot, and he would be the showrunner, and I would just produce. The thing is, I'm a huge fan, like I said, of the Ron Moore original. I felt like for me, in terms of like that specific sort of hard, it's pretty hard sci-fi. You know what I mean? It's probably a level 1-2 deep for me, and I didn't think I'd be the perfect candidate. But I know what I like about Battlestar, so that's why I think it'd be better more as an EP role on the show. And again, Mike, who's tackling it, is doing a fantastic job. So he'll be the showrunner.
Could the pilot be shot later this year, or do you envision this more as like a 2022 thing?
I want to shoot later this year. Again, a lot of that is up in the air given COVID. And you know, and just the sort of the lay of the land in terms of where the world is and where we can even shoot it. The other thing is that this is going to require a big sort of production to start, just to even start up production and build the sets and start getting the VFX fine tuned. Because you know, one of the things that I always attribute the Ron Moore Battlestar with is the VFX is just outstanding and pretty revolutionary. I mean, the shaky cam in space and with the zooms, that was very raw and gritty. That was not something I had really seen in sci-fi before Battlestar. So we sort of have our challenges when it comes to, well, how are we going to take the mantle and and kick it up a notch with our Battlestar? So with all those things in mind, it will be tough to get it off the ground this year, but that's my goal. I mean, I'm pretty impatient. Again, like I said, I'm a fan of the show, so I want to see it as soon as possible. So I'm gonna push. I'm gonna push for 21.